Hi, this is BradleyWilliams, student number 200138, and this is my game treatment vlog for GD301. I'll be showing off my development progress and process, and speaking about the story, lore, and outline to my game. So, here on the mirror board, I've got my basic plans for the game. When designing a level, I started off by looking at games and their maps and how their maps are laid out. Took inspiration from those. And went into Photoshop and did a simple sketch of a level design that I thought would be nice as a first level, kind of introductory level. Once I had the sketch down, I went in and looked as to where I'd want enemies to be and where their pathings would be. Um, and once that was finished, I went in and looked at the player path, splitting off to show where the player would have to go to complete an objective before being able to move on to the next level. Then I went into Unity using the asset pack that I had and started populating the level, um, populating it with the walls, stairs, and blocks, tree models, even a car model. For the level, I try to keep the level to a theme, but since the theme of the game is that the game's starting to kind of fall apart, I try to throw in things that didn't really belong in the level, like a bunch of trees in a more industrial area. Um, Then I started populating it with enemies, just using base models for the enemies, showing off screenshots from different angles, and then just an over top-down shot. When creating the player, I kind of looked at just two main aspects of the player I wanted to look at, which was combat and movement. There's going to be two types of combat, melee and gun, and then I looked into how I'd be doing that, each one of those. Then the movement, I just looked into what I wanted the player to be able to do: walk, run, jump, crouch, and slide. Those were just the bases of what I wanted them to do. The enemy, just to keep the game simple, there would be only two: melee and shooting enemies. One would be turret-like that raycast the player. The other one would be a physics check sphere as well. Then I looked at just how their movement would work and the type of AI I'd use. Looking at the player progression and kind of the storyboard for the game. Throughout the first level, I would introduce the player to melee attacks and the simple movement, kind of getting them used to the controls. Then have a waypoint indicator to show them how to finish the first level. Have then show obstacles to teach the player how to like kite the enemies and get the player feel for how to move around levels. Then I'll have UI and in-game things change based on whether or not the player had finished the objective in that level. Then in the second level, the player will unlock the hook shot. The hook shot will teach the player to close gaps with enemies and allow them to close gaps with enemies really quickly. Um, Also teaching the player to move around the level quite quickly. However, the player is only going to be able to hook shot onto certain materials and certain um, parts of the map, so that they can't just swing wherever they want. So they will be kind of funneled in that way. We'll give the player their first puzzle. It's going to be a simple just activate the pressure plates puzzle. Um, then have a specific just platforming that teaches the player how to use the hook shot in specific ways and in specific situations. Then the third level will introduce the player to enemies that can shoot, teaching the player how important it is to close gaps. And then at the end of the level, the player will unlock the gun, and the rest of the game, which will be one or two more levels, um, will let the player find their way of playing the game, allowing them to move through levels however they please. As the game starts to deteriorate more and more, looking more like a movie set than a game. And then at the end of the game, there'll be a boss battle, the creator, the designer of the game. Then this was a list of puzzles that I thought would be in the game or could be added to the game, which was the pressure plates, switch combination, the light, where light reflects off mirrors to hit a certain point, a paradiegetic puzzle, which was figuring out um, how to beat the puzzle by doing it in a non-conventional way, which I thought fit the theme of the game, and then a trick shot puzzle, which would be used with the gun just to hit a shot. Then with the level design, this is how I went about going into level design. and populating the level. So I took the screenshot of the level of the base of the blueprinted level of in the room, and I started sketching out things in Photoshop, taking it in, seeing how it would fit. And then this was the final product, just adding a few props in there, making it look like it was a um, asset room that the Unity developer would use to hold all their assets and that kind of thing. And this was the kind of breakdown and process of how I um, implemented and added the level design, the mechanics, how I'm going about creating the game, the kind of progression, and the process of adding assets into levels. It was kind of my process and progress in the development of my game. Thank you.